Hi, friends. It's Saturday, January 4th at about 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm so glad to be here with you today to talk about the current astrology, astrology in general, and any questions that you have. Today, I wanted to take a look at this chart and have a look at sort of a big overview for what's going on with the astrology. Sometimes when we think about daily horoscopes, we look at the moon or we'll look at all these different transits and things that are happening in isolation. Um, Sort of as I've been doing throughout this week. I had an episode on Mars opposed Pluto where we really focused on that. Another morning, we talked about the Jupiter Saturn Square. Today, I want to kind of put it all together and just take a moment to go around the chart in a big overview kind of way. So that should be good, a good sort of checkpoint, a good check-in. And then I want to talk just a little bit with you about um, how to get started with studying astrology, where to start. I've had a lot of comments from people about how they wish they could find a channel that would sort of start at the beginning. And they could start there and learn all about astrology, sort of consuming all of the videos. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I feel like I'm crooked here and I'm just trying to get myself all set so that this looks as good as it can. It's not great, I know, but it's what we're working with for now. There we go. That's not too terrible. Um, and then I will also have some time for questions at the end if there are any questions at all. So if you have a question about astrology in general, about the current astrology, about your chart, this is a time and space to ask them. So please put that in the comments. And then I will get there at the end of this time. It should probably be, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes today. I'm so glad that you're here. Please leave any questions in the comments and let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at this current astrology for today. I did kind of want to do like a big picture overview in a casual way. I'm not going to use a lot of notes. I have very minimal notes for some of the planets, just some dates that I wouldn't be able to keep straight in my mind. And I don't have any notes about the significations. I'm just going to sort of speak from what we are always talking about and a little bit sort of off the cuff. I hope that this is okay. It's a little crooked, I feel, which I feel probably isn't that fun to look at, but maybe it's not that bad. It's okay. I don't think I'm going to use any of the tools today. In the past, I have labeled the different planets or labeled the aspects. But I don't know if I'm going to, you know what maybe I will do today is just use a magnifying glass. We can just use a magnifying glass and then that can sort of help to, I can move that around as we talk about different things to show what we're focused on. That's helpful, isn't it? Okay, except for where I want to start, which is the nodes, which is not a good example for this because the nodes, there's two of them. So it's actually pretty difficult for me to use the magnifying glass to show the nodes because there are in fact two of them. We have our south node here in Libra. We have our north node in Aries. They are at the 0 degree point. The nodes are the only points in the sky that we use in astrology that move the other way through the zodiac. They move the opposite way through the zodiac. And I don't want to talk about Pisces and Virgo, where they're going right now. We're taking a big overview of this moment. And in this moment, they are wrapping up that time in Aries and Libra. And so the nodes work for about 18 months. They stay in a sign for about 18 months. And I think that's a really nice amount of time. It really gives us a solid little chunk of time to work with a theme. And wherever these were in your chart, these last 18 months with Libra and Aries, we've all been working on themes of self versus others. What I need, what you need, how taking care of ourselves actually helps us to better take care of others, finding new sort of boundaries and emotional boundaries, limits in terms of things that maybe we've done for a long time for others that we can't anymore. There's been a real reworking of sort of personal identity with that Aries signature, that North Node in Aries coming into like, who am I? What was I put here to do? What do I need? When I'm the leader, where do we go? um, and really listening more and more to that voice, letting go of some of the more difficult ways that Libra can sometimes show up, being a little bit more of a pleaser, um, um, letting go of um, let go of tendencies to serve the other that actually don't work for anybody. They don't really give us the connection that we genuinely want, and they don't really honor and support the other person either. Authentic connection where we're all coming from a place of self love is really best. You know, I'm not sure exactly how this showed up for everyone, but there are these themes of self versus other, playing with those lines, playing with those boundaries, playing with the emotions, upgrading all of that, moving into a more authentic, more stable, pleasant, harmonious balance with all of that. And we're here at the end of that time, 18 months. And now is a really great time to be taking those lessons in. If you do know your chart and you know where the nodes are in your chart, you might want to think about those houses, those life areas. I find that the nodes are incredibly powerful. This indicates, basically, the nodes indicate where we're having eclipses in the sky. And eclipses, just like full moons, we really notice them. I feel like it's something that sort of proves astrology. Like if I was going to run a scientific test on astrology, which isn't necessary or a great idea probably, um, I would do it on eclipses because I think they're the thing that maybe Saturn as well. We really notice where the nodes are working with us in our chart. So wherever this is happening for you, pay attention to that and think about that if you know your chart. But I think as we're wrapping up Aries and Libra, it's a very interesting time. You know, we're really able to take some of those lessons in before we move on to Pisces and Virgo, which is going to be next level. Okay, where am I going next? Let's go to Pluto. Let's go to Pluto and Aquarius. So much that can be said about Pluto and Aquarius, but basically we've had about a year and a half, oh, how long, since the summer of 23, I believe Pluto started moving back and forth. About as long as those nodes were in Libra and Aries, Pluto has been flirting with this degree line between Capricorn and Aquarius. And finally, here we are with Pluto in Aquarius for good. And Pluto is at this 1 degree mark. Pluto will retrograde back to this point again in the future, but it will never go back into Capricorn. Well, it will go back into Capricorn, but it'll have to go all the way around first, which will take lifetimes. And none of us will be here in this form, at least, at that time when Pluto makes its way back around to Capricorn. So Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius until 2043. And as we begin to get these hits from planets for the first time, whether it's the moon passing over Pluto, Sun, Mercury, Mars, anything even interacting with it, like right now we do have this this Mars-Pluto opposition, which I want to mention as well. That is sort of illuminating this Pluto for us in a whole different way. So as it receives those aspects from the personal planets, from the luminaries, especially when the sun passes over Pluto, um, which will happen soon, I think it comes online in a different way. So be paying attention in 2025 to what new things are lighting up for you. Things that feel totally revolutionary, sort of futuristic, really, really different. And these themes might have started a year ago or maybe even a little bit more, but it's nothing you've ever done before. It feels exciting and it feels revolutionary. You feel empowered within this signature. And it's just always interesting to keep in mind that that's something that everybody's going through. I want to say something about maybe I'll lose this. I kind of want to lose the magnifying glass. How is everybody today? How is everybody doing? Is your year off to a good start? What do you think about a live astrology video every day? Do you think it's a good idea? I'm hoping it's a good idea. I expect to need to learn and grow. I know I'm pretty green here. One thing I wanted to say about Mars, the Mars-Pluto opposition, which is happening right now, since we're talking about Pluto. This is a very prominent aspect. This is a very powerful aspect that's happening right now. We're really, really feeling this transit. And what I wanted to say about it, I did a video. I will link here, and I will also link at the end of the video to a report I did where I talked about the Mars-Pluto opposition as if Mars and Pluto were sort of personified. Sometimes we can experience transits where we have some sort of an interaction with another person, and one of us sort of plays out the role of Mars and another sort of plays out the role of Pisces. So I think I called that like Mars-Pluto ops or something like that. I'll link that here and I'll link it at the end as well. But something else that I wanted to say is that sometimes that struggle can be really internal. We can feel those two different sides within ourselves. So there might be part of you that's feeling the Mars retrograde in Leo, which might feel like pride. It might feel like there's a part of you that is worried about what other people are going to think, wants to get that applause, wants to get that recognition. Again, with Mars being retrograde, it's helping us to let go of what's not working. So like with Libra, when we're talking about the South Node and releasing, sometimes when the signature is in retrograde or South Node or doing something with letting go, we want to look more at the more difficult sides of that signature. For Leo, sometimes that can be pride. It can be needing attention. You know, is there a part of you that has that going on? Whereas the Pluto in Aquarius, that new Pluto in Aquarius is like, just do it. Just do it. Don't think, I almost don't even want to elaborate on that phrase because it really sums it up. I think that it's important to sometimes not let our inner monologue work against us. And Pluto in Aquarius is encouraging us to not get hung up there. Pluto in Aquarius is fast. You get a new idea, you have the instinct, because we've learned to work with that more and more as our nodes are working through Aries and Libra. That will continue to progress as they move into Pisces and Virgo. Learning to trust your instincts, trust yourself. If something feels right, just do it. And don't worry about what other people are going to think. Don't let that pride get in your way of it being something that's new, that you haven't done before. I feel like now I'm talking about myself as I'm sitting here doing these live streams, which I haven't really done before. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about that. Sometimes we can internalize the conflict. And with this Mars-Pluto opposition right now, it might feel like an internal struggle between whether or not to move ahead to this new thing that feels really scary and exciting, but it's different. You haven't done it before, and it's really different, and you don't know what people are going to think. Does anyone have that going on for them? Can you let me know in the comments if you do? Okay. We have Neptune here in this very busy Pisces house. It's important to get over here to Pisces pretty quickly. There's a lot of good things happening in Pisces right now. I think that Venus-Moon conjunction yesterday was quite lovely, actually. There were some really lovely elements to the day, even though the Mars-Pluto opposition was pretty active. Like all times, there are so many different energies going on that you can tune into all kinds of different things. But I did feel like there was a certain availability of pleasure and nice comforting things yesterday with Venus and Pisces, and especially with the moon there. But with Venus and Pisces in general, now is a great time to just do anything that where you're sort of taking care of yourself, any kind of self-care, especially like for your physical self. If you want to like get a massage or do a mask or anything like that would be very enjoyable with Venus and Pisces. It's great to do self-care. I spoke quite a bit yesterday about the relationship side of Venus and Pisces. I will link to that here and at the end of the video as well if you're interested. And something I realized I wanted to bring up is the self-care side of it. It's really great during Venus in Pisces to do buy yourself flowers, anything like that. Sincere acts of self-care that's really self-care, not that self-destructive, right? It can be so easy to think that self-care is like eating some junk food and watching a movie, and that's fine. And I certainly do that times myself, in all kinds of ways. But I understand that it's not the kind of self-care I try to remember and understand that it's not the kind of self-care that really nurtures my soul. That sometimes those activities require a little more effort, but you feel even more amazing on the other side. You're doing things to improve yourself, improve your life and your health that aren't work because I can just give in and just be working and working. I know that's true for so many people. I just keep going, keep getting things done, keep crossing things off the to-do list. And I think that that's feels like fulfillment, but or that it's giving me a good feeling, but that's not proper self-care either. It is more the taking walks in nature, the caring for my body, preparing good food, shopping for good food, being around people who really nurture me, reading a great book, meditating. Even just as I sort of start to get into the list, I feel a little bit of a lightness in my heart. It's really a nice thing. And I think with so much in Pisces these last few years, not just the moon and Venus here, which are more transient, more recent to this sector of the chart, Saturn and Neptune have been there for a minute, and we've all been sort of learning more about these more sort of mystical, intuitive ways of connecting with ourself and with higher power, with other people. Pisces is great that way, and the nodes coming in are just going to take that to the next level. So, since I just mentioned it, Neptune and Saturn are here, and they're going to do some really interesting stuff in Pisces in 2025 and in Aries. Neptune enters Aries at the end of March of 2025, but then retrogrades back in October and then returns to Aries in 2026, where it will remain until 2038. So this is a much longer transit. And Neptune and Saturn, not until then, will conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries, but they will be near exact to that in July. I'm stopping myself because I'm remembering I'm supposed to be talking about right now, not what's coming up. Sometimes it's hard to do that. Right now, what's going on is there's a lot in Pisces. And Neptune there, it can all feel, I'll say this about the Neptune and Pisces specifically, and also just sort of all Pisces in general. It can feel really dreamy, and then it can also sometimes be like a little disillusioned. Both of those things can be true. I think when there's a lot going on in Pisces, you can find yourself sort of dreaming and imagining about this beautiful future and really capable of creating those images and that those ideas in your mind. And then at the same time, there are things that you're like, why is this so not what I need it to be? And it's usually two different things in your life. There's sort of a place where you're feeling really disillusioned and a place where you're feeling really dreamy. And we sort of have access to both of those pieces of information. And both are really valuable, right? Realizing what we don't want, realizing what we do want. It's not so much about taking action, it's just about experiencing the feeling. And that's where it starts with the feelings, with the thoughts. Then come the words and the actions that support us moving in a direction that moves us closer to what we want, closer to the things that make us happy. I think listening to that inner guidance means following what feels good and stepping away from what feels difficult and trusting that that helps to open up your path. And those feelings are a little more easily accessible to us with everything in Pisces right now. It is also significant that we have this Jupiter Saturn square sort of ongoing. Just like we have Venus newly in Pisces right now, very significant. Mars opposed Pluto, very significant. Another big one is the Saturn Jupiter square. And I think it's just like um, uh, Jupiter and Saturn are the furthest planets that we can see with the naked eye. So when they were conjunct in 2020, it was called the Great Conjunction. It's been known as the Great Conjunction since ancient times because they're the furthest two planets. They interact the least. It's the rarest of conjunctions known to ancient people, where that was the furthest planets that they could identify. And it's still the furthest we can see with the naked eye, so that's significant. So now that Jupiter is squaring Saturn, they're sort of coming into their first difficult conversation since that conjunction, which was at 0 degrees of Aquarius, by the way. Just amazing. So there's something about, usually this affects sort of the collective a little bit more than our individual lives. And there's something kind of about the pace of progress that is moving forward right now. And I think we can all feel that. We're moving into the next step of this era. If Jupiter and Saturn came together in 2020, we're now at the end of the first stage of that new era. And here in 2025, we're a quarter way through that 20-year period until they conjunct again. And we're in a different place. So things are moving forward, but not too quickly. I think Jupiter's moving us into the future and Saturn saying not too fast. Let's make sure we don't forget anything that we really want and need. Uranus in Taurus is definitely worth mentioning. In July, Uranus will enter Gemini, but for now we have Uranus in Taurus, which has really just been doing so much to shake up things that have been stable, whether that is finances or physical, tangible things. Taurus likes stability. Taurus loves stability and does not love change. And Uranus is pretty much the opposite. Uranus is happy to bring about sudden, shocking change in order to just continue the movement and the evolution of life and the forward progress, the forward movement towards more learning, more potential. So this began in, when was it? Wasn't it like 2016, 2018? several years ago that Uranus entered Taurus, and we're beginning that sort of transition out in July of 25. Um, or perhaps Uranus actually stays in Gemini at that time. I think that's true because then we have that minor triangle with Neptune and Pluto, um, which is going to be beautiful towards the end of 2025. There's some really nice astrology at the end of 2025. You see me getting ahead of myself again? So anyway, Uranus and Taurus, it's a great time right now to reflect on um, the things that we thought were really stable that weren't, that could suddenly be shaken up and changed, and how we've become more resilient, more capable, more mature, compassionate, empathetic as a result of that work in progress. I also want to mention the nodes, or I'm sorry, the nodes, Chiron in Aries. Chiron, the wounded healer, a place where we have struggled that then becomes our strength. How it's very hard to teach something that you haven't actually learned yourself, that you haven't struggled to learn yourself. Learning is a process, learning comes in waves. And it's very hard to be compassionate about that as a teacher if you haven't learned the lesson yourself. So Chiron usually indicates a place where some healing happens, and that healing transforms us. And Chiron in Aries has been so powerful working with those nodes. I spoke about that earlier today, how these nodes are helping us to work with our relationship with ourselves and with others. And I think Chiron here in Aries has really been healing our, and Chiron is right at the degree point where where that eclipse, that solar eclipse occurred in April, by the way, at 19 degrees of Aries right now. So a lot of healing potential this past year, and right now it's still active. It might be interesting to think about what you were thinking about, what you were working on in late March, early April, and there may be some ways in which you're in a place where some of that can really be healed now. And I think that Chiron has been healing our ability to prioritize our journey, make sure we're honoring what feels right and good, and honoring ourselves and self-love and boundaries and resilience, advocating for ourselves, advocating for others. It's been a really nice signature. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. I kind of think big picture, that's where I want to leave it for today. I did want to mention quickly this idea, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments now, and I'll get to that as soon as I'm done with this, which will be very brief. I just wanted to say sometimes I do get those comments about people being like, oh, I love astrology. And what I would really like is to find a channel where you can sort of like start at the beginning and learn all about it. And while there are places to start with astrology, of course, like you can start with understanding the signs, just the significations of each of the signs. It's really kind of, if you already know that, it's kind, or a lot of that, maybe you know about a lot of the signs, but not all of them, or some more than others. That's true often. You probably know enough to jump in, and you kind of just have to jump in. You kind of just have to jump in. I'm not saying there's not a like progressive way to learn. You can learn the signs, then you can learn the houses and the aspects and progressions, and there's definitely a ladder you can climb. But if you know a lot about the signs, you know enough to engage in the study of astrology. You're a beginning astrologer, and you're always going to be your own best astrologer, because we can all say this or that about the archetype, but when you hear that archetype, you know what that means for you. So we're all sort of meant to be working with astrology for ourselves, really. And just sort of jumping in. And of course, you don't understand it all right away when you're new, but you pick it up a little at a time as you go, and you find those teachers that work for you. You find a style that works with you. And yeah, I would do what feels good and don't do what doesn't feel good. Know that it's a process, that it takes time. You move through beginning astrologer to intermediate to advanced. I think that it's always a journey. Just like anything else, the more you know about astrology, the more you know that you don't know. So, you know all these techniques that you haven't studied yet. You know all these different forms of astrology that you haven't studied yet, or places where you could deepen your understanding. So we're always learning. So just be sort of along for the ride in the process of that, and it should really help you to enjoy the experience, the valuable experience of studying astrology, which is just about having a little introspection, a little distance in a way from our life through which we can observe it and we can think about it in an intentional and meaningful way. One of the ways, and there are many others as well that are also valuable. Highly recommend any kind of meditation or presence practice. I think that's probably been for me the most valuable stuff in my life, more so than astrology for sure. Just working with being present, working with meditation, it opens up all kinds of doors as well. So anyway, now I'm rambling just about life. I don't know uh, I don't know everything about this stuff, astrology or anything else, but it's some of my favorite stuff to talk about. So I'm always happy to discuss it, and I enjoy being here. So I don't see any questions, but I appreciate the likes and I appreciate you being here. And I will be back again tomorrow. I'm live streaming every day in 2025. Thank you. Have a great day.